Hello, Motor Rider World fans, and welcome to Talking MotoGP with our special guest, Mr. Simon Crafar. We've got lots to talk about. So far, the 2023 season, we've seen the Sepang test. We've now also seen the Portimao MotoGP test. So we're just going to dive straight into it. There's a lot to talk about. We're going to try and just go through each manufacturer, pinpoint a couple of riders, a couple of key things that Simon would have picked up at the track in terms of aerodynamics. I mean, that in itself is a 4-day long conversation, but just going to pick as much information as we possibly can from Simon Crafar, who was present at the tests, and just there's so many questions. Ducati, look like they're off and running to the races already. Of course, the big question that a lot of people want to find out in here is Brad Binder and KTM, Jack Miller and KTM, Marc Marquez and Honda. Honda buying bits from other or using Kalex bits and bolting them on their bike. All these questions we are going to delve into now with Simon Crafar. So just a big welcome to everyone already. Lots of people tuning in saying hello and that can't wait for this. It has been a long wait. It really, really has been a long wait. It's hard to kind of try and tie the riders down because, with Dorna's kind of rules with the races only being allowed at the track, and you can do media at the track. So to get one-on-one interviews is very hard. But stay tuned to the YouTube channel. Got a really cool piece up there with Miguel Oliveira, a couple of World Superbike riders as well. So stay tuned. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Simon Crafar. Simon, how are you doing?
Good.
Now you've muted yourself. Now you've muted yourself. We're gonna have to get your tech there again.
Yeah, I'm with a computer. I'm a tech retard. My wife rescues me all the time.
How are you doing that side, Simon? It's been a busy year so far. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, sorry. This my daughter coming back and her dogs, her dog and mine, all excited to see her. Right. Sorry about that. What was the?
No, it's cool. You've had a busy start to the season or the year so far.
Yeah, but I'll be honest. I was so looking forward to getting going and seeing all the new things and the different riders on the different bikes that it doesn't feel really busy. I can't wait to get going, and I'm glad I feel like that because it's going to be a long year, so.
It's going to be a very long year. Simon, okay, you were present at the two tests. I mean, we're not going to delve into each test necessarily. We just recap on kind of your findings with the manufacturers we go through and riders and stuff. Let's start off, obviously, with the world champions, Ducati, the kind of manufacturer to beat. They've got all these bikes on the grid again. They've got these fantastic riders on them. And it just seems, from what I can take from the testing so far, is that they are ready to go racing tomorrow in many ways, especially the riders like Marini, Bezzecchi, Alex Marquez in many ways, even though he's still learning, that are still on these packages that are tried and tested from last year. And, we're ready to go. Whereas Pecco and them still fine-tuning, but again, Ducati, the team to beat.
Yeah, I think they're in probably the best position I've seen them. Last year, we know they had hassles, with that 22 engine. They went back and picked the front ride height device. There's none of that this year. They have done a really good job of not making that mistake again. Like you said, the 22 bikes were sorted, and they're in the two satellite teams, and they haven't had to change. They've just had to make friends with them and settings. Then the factory team, even though there is another engine, a different chassis and some different aero, they've done a really good job of not rattling Pecco like they did last year. Like I think I've mentioned on your show before, he's one of those guys that doesn't like his bike to change a lot. He gets confidence. I've come across him before. I worked with Norikabe as a suspension technician, and he was exactly the same. He wanted the bike to be as he knows it, so he could get on and he knew it and get the most from himself. And they're both really talented guys, and that's how they work. Unlike some who will keep looking and trying to find what they want, And I've been looking at Pecco's bike. It's barely changed. Yeah, he's tried different aero, but liked it and stuck with it. He tried the different chassis. It's so hard to tell them apart. I think it's stuff inside that we can't see, like thickness or stiffness somewhere. But I believe he's gone with it as well. And the engine, the aero, and the chassis. But he seems so happy on it, like completely sorted. Interesting. Both the Pramac and the factory riders, so those 4 have been juggling the different belly pan, the wide one that looks like the Aprilia, and the original looking one with the 2 downdraft kind of scoops on it. They've been going back and forwards right up until the last day. They were still back to backing. So to me, it looks like Ducati have got 2 lower belly pans that work, So I'll be interested to see if they homologate both, because some circuits might suit the different belly pan, have strength in different areas. But sorry to get off on, but they look in a really good, strong position, like with both factory bikes, meaning the 23 bikes, Pramac and factory, and the 22 bikes.
And Luca Marini just seems to have come of age. He's going about it at the right way. I was one of the guys when he came in a couple of years ago. I was like, man, I'm not too sure. You still even corrected me that first time and said, I think you might be wrong. Watch Marini. And it's still testing, I know, but the guy just looks so assured of himself. He looks confident on the bike. He looks like he knows exactly which way he wants to steer that bike. Ducati have got the stable of riders now where you could see Ducati finishing first to kind of 5th in the World Championship with the riders that they've got now. Martin seems to be the only loose cannon in many ways that needs to just be managed a little bit better. Zarco, and correct me if I'm wrong, seems to have this test rider role, so I don't know how consistent he will be, if they're going to be throwing parts at him more often or not. But there's no reason to kind of rule out Bezzecchi, Marini for top 5 more often than not. Then, of course, you've got your Bastianini and Pecco, which is going to be this beautiful rivalry that I cannot wait to see unfold this year. But it's not just about the factory boys anymore. You've got this cavalry behind you, Ducati, that are ready to just take over.
Yeah, I completely agree. But they've got a really good lineup of guys. I mean, there's no one that isn't. MotoGP is not like what it was in the past. Where there was the haves and have-nots, and a varying level of riders as well. I mean, it wasn't that many years ago you could say that, but now they are all great riders. And the thing is that stands out to me is because the bike is so good, the Ducati is so good, that any one of those great riders can do something great. Some of them are going to do something more special and more often, but all of them have got the potential. Basically, it's because the bike is so good. If they click at a racetrack, like we're going to see it with someone clicking, like different guys like Bezzecchi, you're going to see Marini, like you said, Alex Marquez, Di Gianantonio. You're going to see those guys, and maybe even like, for example, even Zarco having you're going to see those guys leap in and take away some points from some of the big guys, because the bike is good. So when the rider does the job, the result's there. Where, some of the other manufacturers, I would say 3 of them, it's not there yet. So no matter what those guys do, you know what I'm saying? They've got to do something damn special to get one of those results. And that's how I see it,
Is this exercise of Alex Marquez literally coming from a factory Honda HRC bike onto a Ducati? And Alex Marquez in his MotoGP career so far in testing has, from what I remember, never really come close to being in the top 10 all the time. He was top 10 all the time, loving life, smiling. Is this exercise just another kind of thumbs up to Ducati to say, well, there you go, this guy's climbed on, and in very limited time, he's able to climb on the bike and run top 10 and beating his brother already?
I think everyone that kind of knows what's going on in the paddock is not surprised at all. I said repeatedly last year on the commentary that Alex Marquez is a good rider. He's 2 times world champion. He's clever, really nice guy. and consistent. You know, that's why he won a world championship twice. He's often not he's not, I hope he doesn't mind me saying, but he's not his brother or Fabio, or even Brad, or even Jorge Martin, you know, that unbelievable speed. But because he's really clever and really consistent, like I was saying, I think he's going to do really well in the championship. And I don't think anyone that watches the sport closely was surprised that he was so good through testing, because you're putting a good rider on a good bike, and straight away you see the results. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, that does kind of sum it up perfectly. I'm excited to see it, because I like the fact that it's Alex Marquez now coming out of the umbrella of Marc Marquez and being on Honda and being on the same, and letting Alex Marquez be the rider that he is. Let Alex Marquez be his own rider, and I'm excited to see it. Like you said, I was never really a huge Alex Marquez fan, but when I got to spend more time in the paddock last year, you kind of get to know them a bit better. You don't have flat out huge conversations with them, but just their mannerisms and how they treat the press, and that you really start to appreciate them more. Not that you never did before, but you just start to respect them every single ride, and there's so much more. And Alex Marquez, I think it's his time to shine, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah, me too. I really am. I think what you mean is you start seeing their personality, and because, you know, especially the guys that have won world championships, they're all really clever as well, you know, and so you start to see that when you speak with them, their sense of humor, and so I do know what you mean. I've got to say that I'm really excited about what's going to happen while we're talking about Ducati, about Jorge Martin, because I clocked what you said about him before, and he deserved that from last year. I've got a feeling that with this bike that didn't have the problems of last year, remember he had to stay with that 22 engine that had the hassles, the front ride height device. But, I mean, some of those guys like Pecco as well, the whole beginning of the season was a mess because of the engine and the ride height device, and them losing confidence, you know, and losing direction a bit on setup. That's not happened this year. The bike's been really good. Ducati have straight away found how to make those new bits work for all, you know, both Pramac and the factory guys. I have huge belief in Jorge's ability. I think he's one of those guys that fit in that very top bracket, the cream.
Yes.
We just have only seen bits and pieces. And I think if he's got the ability, he's now got the machine as well. And if he uses his head and really stays focused, doesn't get distracted, I think he has got distracted last year when things weren't going right. And I think he could be the real surprise. I'm talking, he doesn't go and hurt himself. I think people are going to go, oh, Jorge's fighting for the championship, you know. I'm guessing, you know, and I don't often do that, but I just got a feeling that if this boy matures to where he should be, his third year in MotoGP on the best machine, the kid is super fast.
It's just crazy to touch upon Jorge Martin. I mean, the guy, after 3 or whatever, however long the break was, climbs on a bike at Sepang, and within 3 laps he's doing ridiculous. That is his ability. He's just able to go so fast, so quick. And sprint races, he must be licking his lips. But my worry with Jorge Martin is, and you can correct me or give me some insight or ask some inside information, is, do you think he's holding a grudge or any animosity towards Ducati for not getting the factory spot? And do you think this talk of potentially going to factory Yamaha, do you think any of that might just cloud his judgment in certain aspects?
No, I think the danger for Jorge is either getting distracted somehow, take his eye off the ball, and or having a crash and hurting himself. I think otherwise, you know, you were saying about the sprint races, he's strong because that's what he showed last year, and then it drops off at the end of later in the race. I saw him do like 39, low 39, the 20. This is on day one, beginning of day two, on a 24 lap old rear tire. He's working on that. He's working on exactly, because he knows the weakness. The team knew the weakness from last year. And when I saw that, I went, like this is part of the puzzle that I was putting together, that why I think he's a real danger. I don't want to make it the Jorge Martin show at all. But and it could be completely wrong. He could go and get distracted, hurt himself, whatever. I touch wood he doesn't, because I think, again, he's got the potential. And I think everything's together. The machine, his experience, right for doing something very special and surprising lots of people, even the boys at the very top. So
to kind of finish with Ducati, and you got to talk about the sprint races when you bring in Ducati. There's still a lot of question marks for me in terms of sprint races that maybe you can answer. So 2 questions here. First question: does sprint races count for championship points?
Yeah, but half. It's half the distance, half the points. And they don't even want to call it races. They call it a sprint, I'm still getting used to that because, it's like half the fuel. I've even spotted how, looking in under the seat, across the top of the back tyre, you can see the aluminium fuel tank in there when they're warming it up. Often they'll cover it up when they're going to go out on track and then basically insulate it from heat. But when they're warming the bikes up, they've got 2 tanks, so because there's no point having a lower level sloshing around when they can just run a hole that's more stable, and they can place the weight. Basically, it's under the seat of the rider, the main volume of fuel. And so they take the seat off, and it's the rider's basically sitting on the fuel, and that's only to get the position of the weight right. And like I said, they're half the distance, half the points, but it's 42 starts. If we get all races, maybe we'd lose a race somewhere, but it's still a lot of risk, a lot of opportunity to wreck your year, out for something stupid. So I think it's going to be a very different year than everything before, when you consider that volume of opportunities to, I want to swear now, but something up, muck up. I'll put it muck up, because
there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of thought process that goes into the sprint race, and that's what's going to make it exciting for us as the viewers, but that's what just complicates things for the riders and the teams. So my second question to end off on the sprint races, second of 3 questions. Second question is, how much does setup, we saw now in testing, this curveball of, right, you've got to go now do sprint simulations was thrown into testing. How much does setup honestly change from your 25 lap race setup to a 12, 14 lap sprint race setup?
I don't think that it's going to change a lot. There'll be a couple of things that I'm still learning about this, and I have to be honest, I'm not ready to answer fully, I'm still working on getting the answers, and we haven't even had one yet. We've only had like a few simulations, but I mean, for example, it was clear to me in the past when a race got red flagged. I'll just talk through so there's no misunderstanding. Joan Mir was going to win in Austria,
Yes,
he was off on the Suzuki. He was going to win. I think it was the weekend. Wasn't the weekend that Brad?
In the rain.
No, it was the year before. Anyway, so Joan Mir was going to win the race. He marched off in front, and I was like, wow, this is brilliant. And they stopped the race, red flag. I think it was one of the big crashes at the top corner. Then they restarted, and I was like waiting to see Joan up the front again, and it just didn't happen. And I did a bit of digging and found out that, when you're not restricted on the fuel as much, then basically some of the manufacturers can get more power out of them. I know they've said half the fuel. It's 12 liters instead of 20 what was it before? 22 originally.
Yes.
But it's still a little bit more than half. I think I got the feeling that they're going to get more power out of it over that distance, So that's another scary thought if Ducati do that, what was I going to say? Then obviously the tyre choice, it'll be most tracks. It's going to be the soft, obviously, where the soft tyre is usable, even for a lot of guys, even for the long race. But everybody will be on the soft, because of the half distance. There's going to be I'm only predicting. I'm not saying that I'm just giving you what I feel is, for example, when we had the full distance races, and I'm sitting there when I was racing and I'm looking at the grid and thinking, who we got to worry about tomorrow,
Yes.
And the grid is all there, but there's guys that won't be there in the second half of the race because they don't know how to manage the tyres. They've got a really good bike. They can, they're either young or they just haven't figured it out how to do the lap time because it takes a different style with a worn-out tyre. And the problem is if you're an established guy, and you're looking at that grid and it's a sprint race, a lot of them are going to be there, even the ones that wouldn't be there. So you'll be like, oh, this is going to be a headache, and the other guys are going to be going, woohoo, we're going to be there. So it's going to change dynamic like that for sure because more people going to have a chance,
That was kind of the third and final question. Obviously, first of all, sprint races, Ducati must be loving life because it's just the ideal situation for their motorcycle. But what do riders like DJ Antonio, maybe Alex Marquez, although I think he will focus a little bit more on the long races, for a rider like DJ Antonio, I look at, and potentially Zarco, who is desperate for his first MotoGP win. These sprint races, do you focus more on that? Because this could be the best opportunity for me to get a win, a podium. How many of the current races look at this and go, right, I'm going to put a little bit more focus into my sprint race because that could be the best opportunity for me to get top 5, top 3, potentially a win. Well, championship contenders like Pecco and that, how much do they fully commit to that as much as DJ Antonio? Because if I crash and hurt myself, my Sunday race where the big prize is could be affected.
I think the guys that are going fast are going to be fast in both.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's going to be guys that have less to lose that are going to be more of a pain in the backside in the sprint races, meaning they will risk some more. I think the guys that are thinking about championship, they can't. They need to get that start, That's the thing. You can't be careful, and otherwise you won't be in that front group straight away. You know what I'm saying? How important the starts are. But yeah, there's going to be some that can't afford to crash. They know it, and others that can basically take a risk. You're right, but that's guys that know they're not going to be in the championship. But otherwise, I don't think there's going to be too much difference. I can't see it yet. I'm happy to be proven wrong. Between, for example, the guys who are going to win the long, and the guys that can win the sprint. I don't think it's going to be a lot. There'll just be someone else in there making some trouble, one or two.
And that's exciting. And that's what the excitement of the sprint race brings. So, I'm excited to see we'll have, like you said, once we have the first couple of races, we'll have more to talk about and more to dive in there and more information available. So that's Ducati ready to go. Riders are looking good. Alex Marquez happy. It's going to be fantastic.
Just before we move on from just to be polite, I just want to throw in, for example, we've already talked about Alex Marquez. I think Bez is a real danger. His age and how good he is at being consistent, right from last year. Bang back, I think he's going to mature, be another level again. He's a real danger, and you've already spoken about Marini. So you're right. The unbelievable lineup. I won't hold you up.
It's hats off to that team as well because they've created this family environment, kind of the perfect team that Rossi always wanted to set up. and they're just getting it right. So yeah, really hats off to that entire setup. Even at the racetrack, you always see them. They've got their ice cream available at their hospitality. It's just a great vibe. The big question, and we'll talk about it later in the year, is this apparent switch from Ducati to Yamaha. I at this point in time, I don't know how that's gonna happen, because how can you give up this fantastic package for this next package that let's talk about? And I'm going to keep this question short and simple for you. It's still early days, I know. Have Yamaha improved enough for Fabio to not have to ride 199,000,000% every race to compete?
I don't think so. I think they've improved the engine, which was his main request. They've done it. But I've spoken on a few different platforms about this, and it is really interesting for me right now. The sport is going through a big change, and we've seen it the last few years with the aero and the devices. And I'll start from the beginning. Like a few years ago, like I said on After the Flag, a few years ago, there was high, short bikes without aero and without devices. And Honda and Yamaha were the ones to beat in that era, And then, of course, Ducati came on, and then basically have moved the goalposts by building this long, low bike with wings and devices on it. And the thing that I've seen is they've got a couple of year jump, which I've mentioned a bunch of times, couple of year head start. They did it. Hats off to them.
Yep.
But I think the others are playing catch up. Aprilia has done an amazing job to close that gap. But it feels to me, the whole reason for telling you this is I was in Sepang and Fabio was doing the laps, like doing the work on the Yamaha. The engine's faster, trying the different aero. The chassis, they shelved, it didn't work. And so he's on the same bike with a bit more power, and they're changing wings every now and again. And he's doing 2-minute flat on a burnt out old tire, which is impressive, that's good. And then because of the rain and that, they have probably 4 rear tires left, and a couple of fronts. So he does a bit of a time attack to see what we can do, expecting around that track with brand new rubber from burnt out old ones, you'd expect a second and a half.
Yeah.
And he'll be right at the front then, right with the front boys. You put a tire in and he goes half a second faster. And their faces, they're all going like, and I was like, wow, look at this. Then he puts another one in and it just doesn't work, What I'm getting from this, and the reason for telling about it, is that to me it feels like there's some sort of invisible wall that you have to get over it. You have to have all of those things working in harmony, the wings and the device and the bike setup to work with them all. Otherwise, you're hitting this wall that I think, the non-Italian manufacturers are hitting. It's Yamaha, KTM, and Honda seem to get to that lap time, put the tires in, and they go, they can't get over it unless Fabio or Marc or Brad do something like this. That's what I see. They do something amazing. And okay, Fabio seems to be able to do it regularly, but I think that there's something missing in their packages, that they can't leap over that wall. That's what we're going to know in the future what it was, but right now it's kind of intriguing for me watching, going, wonder what this thing is. Always in the past, you're working with power delivery, electronics, and bike setup, geometry, and now we've got this whole other thing that is invisible, and it affects the whole package a lot. And I don't think that, sorry to make it so long, but that's what I see right now. And I think, back to your question about Fabio, he's magic. He's so good. And what I saw is in the qualifying that he's going, in in the testing, he's trying to get, and he's not happy, and he's like, and he's a similar speed to the other Yamaha. You know what I mean? He's not far ahead. What, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Probably where the bike should be. You know, and then he goes and finds his feeling and does something awesome. You know, and he makes the bike competitive. He's competitive. He's back, but my gut feeling is, like happened in the last 2 years, you can't expect a rider to do that 20 times, 20 races. And now it's going to be maybe 21 times and 2 races, you know, a sprint and a race. I just think you get, from the last 2 years watching, I think Fabio gets burned out by halfway because, like I said, I don't think it's fair to expect that of your rider every weekend. When you can ride your bike at the speed it's meant to go for a great rider, and then occasionally go and do something special,
yes,
you know, you can ride the year like that. But trying to do something special every weekend, I think, is some sort of burnout, or, you know, that's only my take on it. I hope I'm wrong.
The big problem is it's the same problem as last year. You got 8 ridiculously fast Ducatis with 8 fantastic, ridiculously fast riders on it to beat. You were talking about holding the timesheet and looking, who do we have to beat? If I was any other rider, you look at those 8 Ducati riders first and you go, God, how are we going to beat these guys? And
Exactly.
I worry about Fabio because, exactly like you said, and it's in that documentary, There Can Only Be One, where Fabio starts. You can see they obviously started filming at the beginning of the year, and he's kind of bubbly in his interview, and towards the end his shoulders are down and he's just this exhausted, and I saw it in the paddock. He's just deflated. There was nothing more for Fabio Quartararo to give, and I worry that it might be a sense of that again this year, knowing Fabio.
So.
He will give it all, but yeah, we're going to see it unfold, and it's still too early to say if Yamaha have given him enough. But that's going to be always a big question mark: is Fabio overriding this thing, and how's he going to challenge with that package he's got?
To give you an idea, at the end of testing, they went, I don't know if you saw it, but they went back to their original aero from last year, you know. And so I imagine they're going to start the year with the aero from last year. I'm like, you know, everybody else is making, you know, not Honda, but everyone else has made progress, you know. And so that couple of years that I'm talking about, that gap's getting bigger, you know. So
but Yamaha do this. They seem to take risks, and then go, oh, no, let's play safe. And it's not the time to play safe anymore, because they're going to be in the same boat as last year, where Fabio is going to be overriding, risking injury, especially with sprint races now, more points, 42 races. So Yamaha they've got to just cut that rule book up and go, right, we've got to do something.
I think they have, you know, I really think, because from what I've seen this year, they are way less conservative than they have been in the past, you know, and they've turned up with the engine, you know, hats off to them. And they turned up with a bunch of different aero with big steps, you know, and that's not like them, you know. They're normally like little conservative. And the worrying thing is, Fabio went faster on the old stuff. So the chassis didn't work at the moment and the aero didn't work. So he's got an engine better than last year. That's it, you know.
Yamaha's big problem here as well is they've got 2 bikes, one fantastic Fabio, one deflated, demotivated, can't seem to make it work, Franco Morbidelli, and that's it. That's all you have to play with is that. So, you know, talk about Frankie. I don't know. Fabulous guy, love him. I'm a fan of his, but it's just not working.
I think with Franco, my take on it, I'm with you. Great guy. And he's already proven how good he is, you know. I think that because he hasn't got that crazy magic that Fabio has, ability to make something do what it shouldn't, you know, like Marc has, like I believe Martin has. Like he hasn't got that. And that's not right. There's only a few people in the world who've got that, you know. I didn't have it. Like there's majority of riders in the grid don't have it. But they are damn good riders. If the package is good there, they're brilliant, you know. It's trying to be able to make something do something it shouldn't. And I feel sorry for Frankie because I think he's lost his mojo. You're right, you know, getting his butt kicked. But I don't think it was his fault. I think the bike isn't good enough to compete against the very fastest bikes. And especially since 2019, I've said it over and over, I think the Yamaha and the Honda in 2019 was as good as they've ever been.
Yep.
And they only got worse to ride since then, you know. And so if poor old Franco's doing everything he can, the bike's not as good as his 2019 one. It's a bit faster, but it doesn't handle the same. And you've got a teammate who's doing shit that is impossible, you know. That's how I see it, you know. If you put Franco on a Ducati and give him some time to get his mojo back, he'll be back fighting at the front, you know.
It's going to be a big year for Yamaha. Whether they've done enough or not is going to be the question mark. Whether Fabio is going to have to ride his balls off again, and it's going to be very interesting to see how the whole Yamaha thing plays out. That's for sure. Aprilia have got a big season ahead of them because of what they did last year. Aleix Espargaro in particular, Maverick Viñales, you've had a season on that Aprilia now. There's no more time to whine and throw your toys out the cot. Aprilia have paid out big money to get you. They took a leap of faith in many ways to get you. It's time to repay you. But you've got Miguel Oliveira and Raul Fernandez now also on your bike. They looked really good in testing, especially Raul Fernandez. He kind of impressed me a little bit there. Miguel Oliveira, you've got a fantastic asset there. But it's a big year. How do you take it forward now from that fantastic year, and how do you improve on that?
I mean, for starters, it's going to be really interesting to see if Aleix can keep the form that he had last year. Was stunning, wasn't it? Like, I think there wasn't a person going, wow, where did this come from, you know? Because, and I'm not trying to be mean. It was awesome what he did, you know? Beyond what, you know, I would believe beyond what anyone, including his own team, expected, you know? It was fantastic. So it'd be really interesting if he's just had that surgery for arm pump, and he's obviously very fit guy. Let's see if he can magic up from last year. But you're right, there's 3 other really big potential machines, and Aprilia have done an awesome job again. I mean, they've done the best job of the best of the rest, you know, and closed the gap. I mean, how difficult is that? Closed the gap to Ducati. No one else has done it. So very impressive. And they've made their bike better again, the 23 bike. The RNF, you know, Oliveira and Raul Fernandez are not on the 23 bike, but I can see they've got brand new equipment. It's not some stuff that's been wheeled out, you know, from last year. It's sparkly new, and the support and the mentality. Like, I've been speaking to the team. We talk to the riders and the debriefs, and I watch. And Aprilia are right behind that RNF thing. It's not like a satellite customer, you know, here's your stuff that you paid for. Come and see us when you have a problem. It's like Aprilia factory have 2 garages, you know what I mean, and 4 riders. And they even say that we've got 4 riders, you know, so they are fully behind that RNF team. And then I did speak to the team manager a couple of times, both tests, and he, the team principal, I should say, not team manager, Razlan, he said that, Simon, this is like, has the feeling of, like, you know, 2019 Petronas. He says, like, we've got the more experienced guy, Oliveira, which back in Petronas days with Morbidelli, where we're putting everything on, and we've got this really aggressive, talented, happy now, Raul Fernandez, that looks every bit capable of even beating Oliveira, you know. The speed he's brilliant, super aggressive. I'm sure he's going to be more like that than Oliveira, but it's some races where he clicks, like I was saying, where some tracks you do, he's going to do something, surprise everyone, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So the Aprilia lineup is super exciting. Oliveira is a class act. Like, I think we're not talking enough about him at the beginning of the season. You know, he's going to do some stuff like remind everyone how great he is. You know, he will, and with the good support of Aprilia, the one I worry about is Maverick.
Is Maverick?
Yeah, because he's got these guys that are damn good and damn hungry. You know, with the support of Aprilia as well. If they start giving it to him, he
crumbles. Yeah,
gonna like it, you know. And the guy is immensely talented. You know, he's one of those guys we're talking about that can do something very special. But what the reason I say I'm worried about him, because he's got to do it this year.
Yes, dude.
Time's out. Like you touched on that as well. But to me, if he doesn't do something this year, I think everyone will lose interest. You know, like because he's had they've been super patient and he's got the right crew chief and he's got Alex Rinz's crew chief from last year from Suzuki who's worked with him before. Super clever guy. He's got everything. So it's time to do the job, you know, to keep your job.
And that's a hot seat. I was going to say, you know, you've had enough opportunity. Now's the time to shine, especially if it's going to be this case of, you know, Maverick seems to get to this point where I love the bike. And then when something goes wrong, it's not me, it's the bike. And he cannot do that with Aprilia. Aprilia is too much of a tight-knit unit and a family-run environment with their captain, Aleix. He can't pull that, because I think if he pulls that, it'll be like, you know, Aprilia, there's a lot of people waiting in the queue for that ride as well.
I totally agree. I think Aprilia are arguably, but I would put my money on they're the most patient of, you know, the Iannone thing. Maverick, they're super patient and fair and kind, and they just want the brilliant guy to bring out that brilliance, you know. But what I'm saying is, it's, you know, after this year, it's enough patience, you know. So I seriously hope he does, you know, because he has the ability. It's just I'm going to give up at the end of this year as well if he doesn't dig it out this year, you know. Because basically the reason I would is there's this job to get a MotoGP ride it's a dream of a lifetime of so many riders, and only a few get the opportunity. And so I don't think it's fair that someone's got the opportunity if they don't make something of it. I think it's ruthless, but there's only so many seats, you know. You've got to bring in another super talent and give him a shot, you know.
Moving on to then probably the two biggest talking points. We'll start with Honda and then end off with KTM. On to Honda. Now, in Marc Marquez, Alex Rins, and Joan Mir, they couldn't have asked for a better rider lineup. Nakagami's there in this new kind of test role and that, which I think is fantastic. I think Nakagami on his day can be fast. That'll add a lot to the project from, you know, testing a lot of these parts in race conditions at a good pace that Nakagami will bring. I watched the latest Marc Marquez documentary on Amazon. Fantastic, because I saw this superhero that was never shown any vulnerability before, never showed weakness, and we saw this human. We always called them aliens, and we saw the human side of a MotoGP rider, which is what I love about these documentaries. And I saw it last year. You know, I saw this exhausted, this depressed, this painful Marc Marquez, and it was hard to see this god of MotoGP in many ways in that kind of state. And the documentary highlighted that. But it's great to see that he's back. The fire's back there, the smile's back there from what I can see with Marc Marquez. It's just, where are Honda at the moment from the two tests that you've been?
Oh, still in big trouble.
That's not a good way to start it.
I just can't believe it that it doesn't feel like. I mean, sure, they've gathered more info, but it doesn't feel like they've made any progress with that bike. Nothing visually since Valencia last year, you know. Like, It's Marc's riding the same bike as Sepang, and at Sepang, the new ones didn't. You know what I'm saying? I think they're really in trouble, and I genuinely feel sorry for especially the three superstars that Honda have got. You know, and I say all three because I know Marc. You know, he's the one that is ready to go win the World Championship. He made himself ready. You know, he did everything right. Pulled out Mugello, went and had that huge one last just ditch effort at winning a World Championship. He wants to win another one, and he's ready. He's done amazing work, you know, to get himself ready, both physically and mentally, and the bike's not there to do it, you know, and it's really sad. But hey, to be fair, loads of people go through this, loads, you know. I mean, we could talk everyone from Brad Binder to there's people for a lot. I mean, we just spoke about Frankie Morbidelli. The sport's cruel, you know, and there's only so many seats, and there's only so many seats on the best bikes, you know, and it's always been like that. So. It's sad. It's shame. We're going to see Marc do some amazing stuff like he always does. He's going to win some races, but unless they pull some amazing stuff out, I can't see him having a bike good enough to get the points he needs to fight for the win in the World Championship. You know, he's going to do an amazing job. He always does. But I feel sorry for him because the bike's not there. I mean, it's probably the last choice of bike if someone said, what do you want to ride? Meaning in the World Championship as a competitive rider. That'd be the toughest, I think, the toughest job. And I'm not trying to put the boot in. I'm really happy to see that they are being humble enough to take expertise from Kalex. I'm sure they're doing it in all areas. You know, they need help electronic wise, I think, as well, and you know, get that power delivery right. Definitely aero wise, they're. I think they seem probably the most lost, or at least, you know, like at least Yamaha have their old one to go back to, and it works.
Yeah,
you know, like. It's terrible to see it, but this is our cruel sport, and it's that period that our sport's going through. You know, the technology thing, and not many people understand it. And normally we're mucking around with other things, and now we've got aero to add in there. So, but I mean, you got to also feel sorry for Rins and Mir, because they are ready as well. They're ready to win. You know, especially Rins has proved it. You know, he's won 2 of the 3 last GPs. So, but I think there's no chance on what they've got right now. Let's hope with the Kalex help and whatever, you know. Sorry, one other thing to throw in about Honda is their engineer that they've got from Suzuki, Ken Kawauchi. Actually, really nice guy, real nice. I first met him when the Suzuki project restarted again, and had lots of little chats with him over the years. Very nice fella. But he's come in, and it's going to take him ages to gather info, to get a feeling of which way to head. And I said it the other night. It's like metaphorically trying to slow down and change the direction of a container ship. You know, it's going to take time, like, to get it. So these boys are going to have a tough time until they figure it out.
So just touching on the Kalex kind of Honda partnership, people have asked a lot of questions on the side here, and Jonathan Borgs just commented here, you know how many people work in Kalex? 8 people, and Honda, the biggest bike factory in the world, need their help. Simply embarrassing. So what is the involvement here? I mean, what are Honda literally trying to get out of Kalex?
I mean, they took the swing arm, and it's their best swing arm, you know. It's on all their Hondas. So they've obviously started the relationship. Honda have had at least 3 different chassis at the last test, you know. The last, I would hazard a guess 4 if you counted Malaysia, and Marc's going back to the original one, so all of their last-ditch effort before the season starts hasn't worked, and so fair enough, let an expert that just focuses on chassis have a go. Their swing arm has worked, and like I said, I'm pleased that Honda are humble enough to do that, because it's how our sport works technology-wise. You see the other garage, since Ducati's been leading, the other garages are now got Ducati staff, that have been poached, for want of another word. Come work with us. Offers, and that's how it's always worked. If you can't figure it out yourself, you got to buy in the knowledge, and that's basically what they're doing, And I mean, Honda will be able to look at what Kalex have done once they get it, if it works, and go, oh, let's have a go at that way as well, and maybe they can improve it, But it's how it's always worked, remember the Barry Sheen's winning Suzuki.
Suzuki, yep.
Based on an MZ, originally 4-stroke cylinder ports exhaust. It was taken from like 4 MZs, which is a East German company.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is it's always been like that,
And then there's a very good question here from Sven Grinner, and this could also apply to KTM in many ways. Does Honda now save millions in development going with the Kalex, who are kind of doing all the work for them? And just to touch upon that, does KTM do this and go, stop spending millions and millions on WP suspension and potentially others that's just not going to get you? Go with tried and tested, put Öhlins in, go Ducati kind of chassis and make it work and save yourself that cost?
I've asked that question, before KTM won a race. It was probably part of the way into their second, if I remember right, maybe second year. I put that question to Pit Byra. I remember it was at Jerez, and I said, Pit, how long before you kind of put the other brand of suspension on, try an aluminium chassis? And he said that will never happen. He said that's not an option, and they will not do it. And then they turned out and won some races, and everyone went, respect, good on them. A lot of people, when they did win in the tracks that were low grip, people were talking to White Power. White Power. WP used to be called that. And all I'm saying is, I agree that they must be getting towards the end of their tether with it's not got the bike to the level they expected. But I've got to tell the fans that watching from the outside, I think KTM have not given up. The effort is fantastic from end of last year to now. The amount of effort they put in with that different sounding engine, which is obviously a different, it looks the same, exhaust looks the same, so it must be different firing order because it sounds obvious different, and to turn up with they tested it, and I think there was only 1 or maximum 2 floating amongst the riders, KTM and Gas riders. And then they've turned up to the second test and everyone's got one. That is a massive effort.
Yeah.
Like, respect, And I don't know if other manufacturers could do that. It was really a huge effort. They must have been working day and night. So to be able to get that many engines ready for the next test and then beginning of the season to last minute, their aero has gone from, look, I'm not an aero expert, but it's gone from more rudimentary, in comparison to it looks damn good, there's a lot of thought and nice work there. You go, wow, I don't know, no idea if it works, but The riders are all running the new stuff. They've chosen the new stuff over the old. So all I'm saying is I'm impressed with KTM's efforts.
Mm-hmm.
I am surprised they haven't paid off. Like, if you take last year's bike and put better aero and a better engine somehow in it, you'd expect a better result, And so I'm surprised that we haven't seen the step forward. But I wouldn't be surprised if they do make that step forward, that it's basically trying to put the puzzle together with these few bits, get it set up right. I think it's going to maybe be a couple of races in and then we go, there they are. They've figured it out, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. You'll be able to tell, I'm optimistic about KTM. I'll put it another way. I've seen these manufacturers, especially Honda and KTM, but now I'm starting to put Yamaha in there as well. Without Fabio, they would be in there, How I see it is really interesting. Out of these giants, Yamaha, KTM, and Honda, who's going to dig themselves out of that hole, jump over that invisible wall I was talking about first? So to me, it's super interesting who is going to do it first. I think, I'll leave it at that. It's going to be super interesting who digs himself. And the way to judge it, that's what I wanted to say. The way to judge it is not by judging the result of one brilliant rider like Marc winning, Fabio winning, or Brad winning. It's not. It's that all of their machines move up the grid. Then you can go, whoa, they're figuring it out.
Before we delve into the Brad Binder and Jack Miller KTM questions, to finish off with Honda and Marc Marquez, we can't really say too much more about Rins and Mir for now because we'll give it a couple of races and we can look into them. But Marc Marquez, in his documentary, was well publicized, went to Austria last year, sat with Honda and said, look at this. This is how dedicated I am. If you don't give me a package, I'll find one elsewhere. And Honda, to their credit, are hiring Ken Kawachi. I mean, for a Japanese brand to go to your opposition and ask for help, that is a massive thing.
But he was free. They don't like stealing people from others. They're loyal. Their tradition is not. But I mean, he was a free agent.
Yes, they had this Suzuki branded guy that's now in a Honda shirt. So they've done the Kalex route. They're doing whatever they can. And this is going to be a hard question to answer. So Marc Marquez, I think, has given himself a deadline because if he doesn't, how much does Marc Marquez risk? Before, Marc Marquez would override the Honda to win a race or to be competitive. The new Marc Marquez, I don't think will allow that. I don't think physically he'll. Yeah, it's hard to put it. So how much does Marc if he comes on the bike and he goes, this is a 6th, 7th place bike at best. How much does the new Marc Marquez, with the injury, the mentality and everything, how much does he now risk to put that bike on the podium?
I think that Marc, you're going to see that a few times this year. Marc, do it. Do exactly what you're talking about. No, force it there.
And so
I think because he's stated that he can ride now like he wants. I don't think he's lost any of his ability. I think watching him, yes, he doesn't want to hurt himself. He doesn't want to, but he's so hungry, so determined that I think you're going to see when he thinks it's possible, where the old Marc would probably just force it every weekend. Yes. I think the new one, when he thinks it's possible, he's going to force it and do something very cool. Really, I think we're going to see bits of the old Marc, meaning he's going to do some rides. I mean, we're going to Argentina where the grip is really low and he's done some crazy stuff before. And then we're going to Texas, and I would have no, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he won in Texas, So he's going to do some very cool stuff, and we're going to see some really good racing out of him. Like, like before. But I think you're right in that if he goes, there's too big a step to be able to run with Pecco, or someone on a better machine. He will just ride it and get it home and get the points, which is a champion, to make. But I think, just to repeat, I'm absolutely positive we're going to see some of those brilliant rides we've seen before he got hurt again.
Look, he's a showman. Marc Marquez is an entertainer. You're always going to get that entertainment factor. I am excited for Marc Marquez, and it's such a pity we don't have the Marc Marquez and the Honda package from 5 years ago in these sprint races, because a sprint race with a Marc Marquez in is fantastic. But do you think that the sprint races with a Marc Marquez and a soft front and rear combination could potentially kind of sugarcoat some of Honda's big problems in the main races and help him shine a little bit better in sprint races?
I don't. I don't. The reason I say that is it's no. I don't know. I just think that to do those qualifying laps like he did in Sepang, even for 12 laps, is too much to ask. I mean, they're wild laps that he did. But basically, if somebody's got a bike, I think they've got a bike that's minimum half-second lap faster, and to force it that bit, I think more than, a few for qualifying is is really difficult. There's going to be places where he's closer and then he's going to force it, But I just don't think that. Of course, we're going to see Marc's brilliance in the sprint race.
Yes.
I just those Ducatis for qualifying are mental, aren't they? They can do this step when they put the new tyres in. Nobody understands how, but they do, and they get another half second beyond what everyone else thought was even possible. And imagine trying to do that for 10 laps. I think there's more chance of tyre management coming into it and beating him in the longer race, because fuel, they've got a little bit less power. Phillip Island, remember the tyre they had to nurse the tyre. Marc played it amazing, just about won, I think there's more chance using all of his skills than straight out speed against those things.
Okay, so on to the very touchy subject that is KTM. And let me tell you why this is a touchy subject. We know why it's a touchy subject, especially for South African fans. But South Africans have been patient and they're losing patience. I just get bombarded with questions all the time. This is why. KTM seem to have this rhythm play out of, struggle, no. Then there's this glimmer of hope towards the end of the season because Valencia seems to do well for them and some other tracks. And then Brad, podium at the last race, should have won it. He was by far the fastest rider. They found this new chassis. Yes, finally, Brad's going to have a championship package. I can't wait for testing. Buh. And then South Africans just go, oh, no, the same script seems to be playing out. There's been F1, Red Bull, aerodynamics that's been to Formula One. And like you said, these new wings and whatever. You've touched upon, the Yamaha, Honda, and KTM, who's going to progress with all their riders the most. You touched upon your expression, told us straight away where Honda are at. Where are KTM at?
When you look at the timing sheets, you'd do the same. You'd go like, apart from Brad doing that awesome job. But to me, it was like just a bit of Brad brilliance to do it, But in general, when you looked at it, all of the others laps of his, they weren't competitive enough. Yeah. So I want to give the South African fans some hope. And I think I did before, but genuine hope. But all I can do is repeat what I I've already said, and that is, you know, I think they've done everything to make the step forward, but we haven't seen it, and I don't understand why. Maybe they do, they probably don't, but I think they're the ones closest to making the step forward. That's why I'm not going like. Testing was not good at all. I'm not surprised Jack struggled through testing. To go fast. He's come from totally different bike, and the best bike, and he's got a tough job ahead of him to dig deep and get it out of himself to change for this bike, and it's not easy. I think we need to give him at least a couple of races before you judge what because it's not easy going from the best bike to the bike that's probably at best third or fourth manufacturer of speed of machine. So Jack aside, but we can judge Pole and Brad. Really clear. You can see where the bike is, and I don't think it's just hope. It is all the pieces of watching and how hard they're working, and they're making step forward, and the riders are like that. I think they're on the edge of a jump forward. I really do, because they've done everything. It looks like there's one little piece missing, that's what I feel. Can you, fans watching, can you go, Simon said it would, when if they make a big jump forward in the first race or two, you know what I mean? And then, because I think it feels like right on the brink, unlike Honda, feels like they're going like, what I'm saying? It doesn't feel like on the brink of a jump forward. Yamaha, they have improved as well. They've improved at least as much as KTM as the engine, maybe more. But everything else is the same, not that it was that bad to start with. Anyway, I'm going around in circles. You can feel that KTM, I think, are going to be the first ones to jump out of that hole, and let's hope it's early in the season for Brad.
This is why I think this is a really big season again for KTM, and a big season for Brad decision-making wise, because up till now it's been Miguel and Brad have been at the forefront with Pole before, but Brad and Miguel took over the mantle, first Miguel, then Brad. Now they've really got a yardstick this year, because they've got Miguel Oliveira, their blue-eyed boy, the guy that was going to take them along with Brad and whoever else to glory, jumped ship to Aprilia. So there's a good yardstick for them, first of all. Then there's the Alex Marquez Honda to Ducati. So they've got a couple more yardsticks to measure themselves now. And why I say it's a big decision for Brad personally, because if the first 6 races, Brad gets beaten more often than not by Miguel on Aprilia and an Alex on a Ducati. Now, Alex was his big rival in Moto2, Miguel coming from the same package. Does Brad, after 6 races, go, you know what, I'm 29 years old. I'm a better rider than these guys. I know I am. I have been for the last couple of years. Martin, did the, hey, KTM, I don't want to go to you. I'm going to Ducati in MotoGP. Got good results, won more races. And then at what point does Brad go, if it gets this way, and say, right, guys, thanks, but if I want MotoGP success, if I want to be a world champion, I've got to do it in the next 2 or 3 years. And I don't know if that's with you.
Well, I think it's a real easy one. You have to know mid-year. That's when mid-year this year, the conversations will really be happening. And if KTM haven't done that jump out of the hole before then, I think there's no chance. That's me looking from the outside. As a ex-rider, what I would do, I'm not hanging around. If that bike jumps out of the hole and you go like, this is working, then you can have the conversations. But then it's still possible to move, because you're a free agent, but if I think all the fans will be able to. The reason I say that is I think Brad will have other options. People know how good he is, I mean, the last year or so, year and a half, he's just showing how gritty and he's one of those special ones that manufacturers want, because let's face it, Honda and Yamaha pay the most money and have the best two guys to make their bike look better than it is, and but that's how it is, and Brad is one of those guys that can make your bike look better than it is, so you want him on your bike. So he's going to have some other options, and the only thing that'll stop him going is your bike jumps out of the hole, makes him happy, that tech dip that they're having for some reason, and then he's going to be talking to them, and then who knows. But Brad's got to do it, otherwise I think, because he is good enough to fight for the World Championship. So he's got to and this is nothing knowledge from inside. I'm just looking from a rider's point of view, what you do, how much patience you got, And
Simon, it kills me. I mean, I have my Brad Binder cap on more often than not because I'm a massive fan. I'm a South African. I've, kind of been through the progression with him. I've supported him and been with him from day one. But when I put that journalist and again with the Brad Binder cap on, that team, Tex, Mark, that team just works so hard. They're there until 10 o'clock at night. It is, like you said, it's not through lack of trying. All the teams are hardworking, and I found huge amounts of respect being in the paddock and see what those they don't, in many ways, they're the superheroes behind the curtain. The riders get it, and the team, the amount of hard work that goes in there, and it kills me. It's hard for me to speak these words when I speak about KTM because of my fanboy and my personal attachment and how hard they work. But when I put the journalistic cap on, you've got to say, listen, there's got to be this line drawn. Brad is this contender. Another yardstick is the Jack Miller. If Jack's going to be more often than not fighting for 12th, 13th kind of place, 14th place, Brad's got to look at that as well and go, Jesus, I can't keep doing this. I just cannot keep doing it. So there's all these yardsticks now that make it a massive season, not only for KTM, but Brad. And like you said, I really hope they get it right from a fanboy point of view and a journalistic point of view, because it just makes the championship even better. But at some point, you've got to, that line's got to be drawn.
Yeah, and it's really clear to not just the fanboys of Brad that Brad is every bit good enough to fight for the World Championship. I know I said it before, so he's got to give himself the bike to do it, while, what I'm saying, it doesn't matter even the money matters, but what I'm saying is that wouldn't be your motivation of your choice. It'll be to win, and that's what he's got to do, I think, for next year. And I'll be really surprised if he doesn't, so it's, I think the ball is in KTM's court, and they know they're not silly, and they've got other guys like Pedro Acosta coming through that is not going to jump on their bike unless it makes that jump as well, so it makes sense why they're trying so hard. And I've got to say I respect KTM for their efforts, like from what I've seen last year. Let's hope it works. Yeah. Hey, sorry. Yeah. One thing I don't want to forget to say to you and tell your fans about, and I don't want to steer your show, but I will forget, and that is you said about how hard the guys are working in the garage, and Brad's crew love him. They love him. They'd happily work all night for him because they know how much he puts in, and that motivates them. And you can imagine with a rider that is the opposite, it would be the opposite, So what I wanted to add was the sprint races, just for knowledge for your fans. A couple of mechanics said to me that they're worried about the time they've got from the end of qualifying, if your rider destroys a bike, to the start of the sprint race. And they're saying, if it's a big one, we haven't got time. And even if we do a good job, you're riding a bike you've never ridden before because it's all rebuilt. And if you have a flag, I mean, you've got the other bike, but if you have a flag-to-flag race, so that combination of you destroy your bike at the end of qualifying, and then it's dodgy weather, it looks like a flag-to-flag, you have a bike sitting on the grid, you know, one with slicks, one with wets. One of them's never been ridden, you know, which is, and you got to go out and race it. And so, and these guys were saying, what do we do? Put 6 bikes in the truck instead of 4, you know, for 2 riders, or for 8, that amount of stuff. So it's going to be interesting how that plays out, you know.
Just to talk about Jack Miller and KTM now. Jack, fantastic guy, fantastic rider, but he wears his heart on his sleeve, Jack Miller, and he's an emotional character. You know, he gives a lot of himself to the world. He shows the real Jack Miller, and he does. He's just that kind of rider. He's that kind of personality. I worry if he is riding more often than not for this 11th, 12th, 13th place, how damaging that could be for Jack Miller, because he takes it all on so personally. It would for any of the riders in there, because they are just the best. We are the best, and that is the worst thing that can happen to any one of these riders.
Exactly.
Because Jack is this a bit more emotional kind of character, I hope it works out for him. But if it doesn't, you know, how could this, if he's got this 2-year contract, but does Jack almost have to say to himself, Jack, you are not going to win this year. Don't even think about it. It's about getting, you know, translating your Ducati DNA to all these Ducati guys that have now come into this KTM project, to try and extract it, as much of that as possible, to then go for next year. So just so he doesn't mentally hurt himself with overcommitting for this year.
I think you did a really good job of describing Jack. That's how I see him as well. He's really, hard on the sleeve, and he really cares about everybody. You know, he's a sensitive soul. You know, he's really caring, and maybe that's part of why he hasn't achieved what I think he's got the ability to, the natural ability and skill to, because he's not an asshole. And you've got to be a little bit, they say, you know, you've got to have a bit of mongrel, you know, want to beat the other guy, you know, like, and Jack, he doesn't hate anyone, you know. I'm only guessing, you know, but maybe that's part of the last bit that was missing to make him as good. I'm sure he'll have a better life after racing, because he'll be loved by his whole family, and, you know, which I'm sure some of the most successful riders aren't. They'd be really difficult men. Getting back to it, I think that it's going to, by mid-season, then that's where I would think Jack needs to find his way with it, you know. Everyone's going to be patient with him, including KTM, until then, you know, and then they're going to want him to. So, let's worry about it then. He's a pro, you know. He's got experience. He's professional. He's doing already what KTM hoped he would do, and that's sort some electronic stuff out. You know, things that the Ducati was better at, and then Jack. This is my take on it. And Jack's come along and go, well, it was better because of this and this and this, and then they find something better with his input. And he's already been doing that. The team manager told me, Francesco Guidotti, they found stuff that worked better for Brad through Jack. And that was part of his wage, was bringing that. But I think until mid-season, let's not judge Jack too harshly. And then second half of this year, everyone will be expecting, especially if the bike makes a jump as well, they'll be expecting some results.
Simon, just to kind of end off the show, you've been in the MotoGP paddock for a few years now. You know, again, I go back to my year that I was able to do last year, 13 races. You kind of see MotoGP in a different light when you spend time with these people, because when you watch them on TV, we often we treat them and look at them as property, as aliens, and we forget they're human beings at the end of the day. How has your approach to them changed now that you've got to know a lot of the riders more personally, a lot of the teams more personally? You know, we say it's so hard to kind of bang down on some of the riders because they're such great guys, like Franco Morbidelli. It's hard to sometimes read in the press and be one of the guys that, he doesn't deserve the ride, or make way for Top Rack, or get, now that you know them personally, how has your outlook on everything changed now that there's this, how do you separate the personal to, I've still got to be a critic and critique these guys?
You're right. I see myself still as having the riders' interests first. I do care about their safety, what their mental health. The amount of pressure, these extra races. I wouldn't say that I'm big mates with riders. I was one. And I know how selfish you have to be to achieve it always, basically, I just told one recently that I think's got big potential, and that you have to look at the goal, and even when someone else is talking to you, every decision you make goes towards that goal, and riders don't always make the best friends because of that, wait for them to retire, and they're focused on one objective, and they have to be, but at the same time, they're still human and need looking after, and I genuinely care about them. What else? Sorry, what was the main thing you wanted to know?
Have you managed to separate the?
Yeah, but you know why? Because I see it as, it was brutal to me, the sport, and it is brutal, and there's only so many jobs. You're lucky if you get more than 1 year to prove yourself. If you've had more than that, I'm not feeling sorry for you, because a lot of the time when I came up, you had 1 year. You have it to show yourself. If you don't, you're out. And it's not really enough, 1 year. But that's how it is. And so, and I know that there's a lot of other young guys coming up that if you don't perform, all you're doing is, if you're in there, is blocking someone else's dream, So there's those two things, you know what I mean? Like, I really care about them, but it's brutal, and you got to perform or get out of here, and it's how it is. Like, I don't think it's wrong, but if there was double the seats, it wouldn't be this much pressure, but there isn't, So, yeah. It's, for example, Tucker, the only reason I'm absolutely fine with him doing where he is, not that Honda care what I think, but is said he didn't want to move up, I agree. He said, I'm not ready, I want another year. And Honda had an injured Marc. They didn't know whether he was going to be ready when the decision was made. And two guys that had never ridden the bike before. So quite handy to have someone that knows the bike and can give them feedback, testing and direction. But otherwise, it's blocking a seat from some other young super talent coming up. That's how I see it. Sorry, Tucker, but it is,
Time is time. Thanks, Simon, for touching upon the MotoGP. It's been great chatting to you again. Just my last little comment. Have you watched some of the World Superbike racing so far this year?
I haven't. I saw bits and pieces. I haven't, and not through not wanting to. I got 2 weeks in New Zealand, and I had to take the opportunity because I won't get one this year. I wanted to see my mum, dad, sister, some friends, and I was back there. They weren't geared up for it, and I was just focusing on enjoying my home country, so I missed the first couple.
my little question there is, and I'm going to do my own little talking World Superbike piece on this, but you might just be able to give me a little bit of insight to help me with this question. Could this be the death of the inline 4-cylinder in terms of World Superbike racing? Because Johnny Ray, still to me one of the fastest guys in the championship on this Kawasaki that just doesn't seem to be going anywhere. You know, I look at it, it's Ducati and Yamaha's Big Bang that are really performing over a long race distance, and BMW just can't make it work. Inline 4 screamer, they got all the horsepower in the world, can't get it down. Speaking to Loris Baz and their riders, they just cannot get this power down. Honda, Lacuono, Javi Vieje just can't get this power down. Johnny Ray just can't get this power down, and our tires are just fried while these Ducatis just keep going and the Yamaha keeps going. Could this, you know, is the V4 just the way to go now?
I don't have enough. If you're talking about MotoGP, you're talking about World Superbikes.
Yeah.
I don't completely think so, because the inline 4 is such a reliable, good package, you know. The ones that make that's where their experience is. I mean, Yamaha, like you said, they've figured it out with that, you know, different firing order. Why won't some of the others have a go at that? You know, you don't have to change configuration to get a different firing order. I'm probably not the right one to answer it, especially about World Superbike, but it's based on road bike sales as well, you know, and the inline 4 is a damn good road bike, you know. It is, you know, it's the most reliable. It'll be, look, that's what they're based on. Like, so how to tell them not to make the best road bike because they need to build the best race bike? That's the problem with Superbike, you know, based on I think it's, yeah, I'm not the right man to answer your question properly, I got to say, because I haven't studied what's going on over there, you know. For someone like Scott Smart, I reckon, who's been doing the tech rigs and stuff, to tell you well what's going on, you know.
Awesome. Thanks, Simon. That's just a little bit of homework for me to do there. But as always, thank you so much for taking the time out, Simon. We are so excited. I cannot wait for Portimao next weekend. I will see you there. I'll definitely be coming to the first one, so I'll make sure to for everyone to know, Simon doesn't have this luxurious life where he sits and chills in hospitalities and then he goes and does it. Every time I see him, it's like, hi, Simon. Hi, Rob. I've got to go somewhere. And
it is full on. You're right. It's full on, and the timetable. I've got to be there on time as well. You know, like just to let you know, it's changed a little bit. So I like FP1 in the pit lane because I get to see what is new. You know, and then I can report that. You know, but then discuss it properly in FP2. FP2 I do in the box. Again, with Matt Burt, but I always wait for the bikes to warm up and run in late to meet Matt. He's cool with it, just so I can see what's changed tech-wise, and put that into FP2. Then all of Saturdays until the sprint race, I get in the box with Matt Burt, meaning all the MotoGP stuff.
Yes.
So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah, my 6th year this will be, and I'm enjoying it. The 5th year I enjoyed more than any other, so hope it keeps going.
Yeah, you're doing a fantastic job, Simon, and thank you so much for lending yourself to me. I see you do a lot of other stuff with other people now. It's great that it's not just Simon Crafar and MotoGP. We don't get access to you. To make yourself available is absolutely fantastic. All of our listeners and followers just absolutely love it. So again, thank you so much. Thank you to the family for letting you take the time out, and I will see you next weekend in Portimao.
See you there. Beautiful place too. Good food, good weather. See you, buddy. Bye, everyone.
Thanks again to everyone for joining in, and make sure to stay tuned to Motor Rider World, and we'll bring you as much content as we possibly can.